Hey Kendra, so I'm Matt. I'm going to be talking to you for a little while today. Let's start off with how you're feeling today.
Um, well, it's just been a bit of a stressful day, so I'm glad our appointment was today. Uh, I just really hate that it's been rainy and I kind of came straight from work, so work was work.
I can understand that. So, what made your day stressful?
Well, I started this new job not too long ago, and I've never been a receptionist before, so I always feel like I'm not doing everything I should be doing.
And I think that's kind of normal starting out with a new job. So, when did you start this new job? How long ago?
About 2 weeks ago, I moved out of my parents' house. So I'm living in my first apartment, and this is my first real job, I guess you could say, not a part time job.
Okay. Uh, so what what in particular would you like to actually, first, why don't you tell me a little bit about you, about uh, your job, and what other kind of things you do?
Well, I guess I'm pretty average. I'm an only child, so I'm my parents' baby by default. That's fun. Uh, I really love animals. So when I got the apartment, I was able to get a cat, which I really love. I love cats. Um, I love all animals, actually, but my cat's kind of my best friend at the moment. He's my little buddy. Um, I really hope to be a teacher, so I thought being a receptionist would help me develop organizational skills and really help with my communication with people.
Okay, that makes sense. Uh, so what would you like to talk about today?
Well, I feel really anxious when I'm at work. It makes me almost not want to go in.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that your new job is really different for you.
Yes.
It's not what you're used to doing. Uh, and plus, you're in a totally new environment, living by yourself and moving out of your parents' house for the first time. And that your new job causes you a lot of anxiety. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what that looks like for you? About what anxiety looks like for you?
Well, I noticed that I'm really silent more often, and I used to bite my nails really bad, and my mother got me to stop. But now I pick at my hangnails a lot more, and I find myself just kind of zoning out.
Okay. Um. So. So tell me about how you feel when this anxiety hits you.
It makes me feel just very uncomfortable. It makes me feel very antsy. At my old job, I was a vet tech part time because I really love animals. That's basically it. I just wanted to be around the animals.
Mm-hmm.
But it was always a hustle bustle, you know? I was constantly having to clean things or get things or just I was constantly moving and I was constantly around people.
Mm-hmm.
So there was always these opportunities for conversations. But now I have my own office and I don't like being alone, it's very difficult for me to sit in a room by myself all day. And I know who I'm working for is very busy, so I try not to bother them because I don't want to feel like I'm a bother to them and make them regret hiring me. But I find it really hard to stay off my phone or to keep motivated to do everything that I need to do because I find myself completing these tasks early and then I'm just sitting there. So it makes me anxious and I find myself really nitpicking and thinking a lot and zoning out a lot. It's just new for me.
So, let me just make sure I'm hearing what you're saying correctly. In your old job, you were used to a more active work environment.
Very.
And now that you've got your own office, now that you are kind of a little more secluded, for lack of a better term, you're not used to that, and you find yourself finishing your work tasks early, and you find yourself with a lot of free time. Do you think how you're spending that free time plays into the anxiety that you feel at work?
Well, I guess it could.
Because I know you mentioned that you made the comment that you didn't want to make the person that you work for regret hiring you. So I wonder if that kind of plays into this a little bit as kind of a, you don't want them to catch you doing something you feel like you shouldn't be doing, even though your work's already done. Is that?
It is, because when I get done with my work, I work on my schoolwork because I'm still in college. So I don't want my employer to feel as if they've hired someone who's only going to work on their own schoolwork and not get their actual job done. Even though I am getting my job done, I don't want them to come in while I'm zoning out and them think I'm being lazy, or for them to come in and me have something related to my schoolwork pulled up instead of work pulled up.
So how about, tell me a little bit about your relationship with the person you work for. Do you have a good relationship? Do you get to talk to them a lot?
I actually find my boss really hard to talk to. It kind of makes me nervous. I feel as if they're very judgmental because they stay quiet a lot during our interactions, and they don't seem very invested in our conversations. So I feel like I'm bothering them. Plus, I feel like they already have an opinion of me.
What do you mean by that?
Well, one of my coworkers is someone that I went to high school with, and I've not seen this girl since high school. We had a big falling out right after graduation, and she's worked there longer than I have, a year longer. So I'm afraid maybe when she found out I was working there, she told our boss something more to her side of the story to paint me in a bad light versus my side of the story and the overall story itself.
Okay. So do you have any interactions, any close interactions with this coworker, or?
Well, the copiers in my office, and there's just a lot of basic things in my office like printer paper, staples, just different odds and end things that others might need at work. So every now and then she'll come in there and she'll look through the stuff and get things, or she excessively seems to make copies of things. And she always seems to do this about once a day for about 10 or 15 minutes. And for those 10 or 15 minutes, I'm just very on edge because it's like I'll catch her watching me, which makes me nervous. And I'm always the one to initiate conversation to make it less awkward, even though she's the one that came in and she's the one that's watching me while she's trying to do things.
So I can see why that would make you feel a little bit anxious. Have you ever had any kind of situations in the past where you've had this kind of anxiety towards people, where you've had a history with them, so to speak, and that affects your relationship later and that causes you anxiety? Have you ever had a situation like that before that you've had to deal with?
I would say so, yeah.
And tell me a little bit about how you handled that situation in the past.
Well, I'm very much so a compromiser. I like to keep the peace more than anything. So I'm always the one that, even if I feel I wasn't the one in the wrong, I will apologize and extend the olive branch first, just because I know it'll make it easier on me if that other person isn't holding any bad feelings towards me.
Okay. Now, is this always how you feel like addressing the situation?
Yes.
If you could say, let's pretend that I'm your coworker,
Okay.
and I would like to see how you would address the situation, without necessarily putting yourself in the wrong, but just addressing the situation about communicating the fact that you feel a little uncomfortable. So let's pretend I'm your coworker, and kind of give me an idea about how you would kind of initiate that conversation.
Like while we're at work?
Sure.
Okay.
Or just whatever's more comfortable for you, at work, outside of work, just whatever's more comfortable for you.
I purposefully only see them at work, so
Okay.
I guess we'll start there. Hey, I know it's been a long time since we've talked as anything more than coworkers, but I'd just like to know how you are and how you've been since high school.
Okay, I think that's a pretty good way to initiate that conversation. How do you think she'd react?
Well, I guess it really depends on what mood she's in. She's very... I always said that she would change personalities so fast it gave me whiplash. So sometimes she's very sweet and understanding, and I can talk to her easily. But since our falling out, now she has these moods where she's very quiet and snarky, and she seems very as if she'd rather manipulate the conversation then have a conversation.
How do you think this plays into your anxiety that you have when you deal with her?
It makes me even worse. It makes me that much more anxious because I never know which side of her I'm going to bump into.
I could see that. So is communicating with her and trying to kind of rebuild some of that relationship with her, is that something that you would feel comfortable doing?
We were very close when we were in high school. A lot of people actually thought we were dating. And funny enough, now she's openly gay and I'm openly pansexual. But we never did have anything more than a friendship. And there were times that I felt very awkward because I felt as she wanted more than a friendship. And after our falling out, I got to see sides of her that I didn't know existed. So I don't feel comfortable being friends with her. I think I just want more of a relaxed relationship, more of like a friendly acquaintance. So then it's not so awkward when I have to be in the same room with her or bump into her or have to talk to her.
So what I'm hearing is that you don't necessarily want to rebuild that relationship, but you would like to kind of at least kind of clear the air, so to speak, so you don't feel like your past encounters with her are going to be an issue when you have to deal with her at work.
Right. I would love to get an actual apology from her, but from what I know when we were friends versus what I've seen of her now, I don't think that's going to happen, and I don't think it's wise of me to want that to happen because I'm setting myself up for a disappointment. But even if I could just get her to not exactly lower her guard, but just to stop feeling as if she needs to be defensive in all of our encounters.
And so, do you feel like having a conversation like you mentioned earlier with her where you kind of approach her as a co-worker instead of approaching her like you have a past with her, is that something you feel like would help get your relationship with her to where you would like it to be?
I think it could. I really just want to let her know that, that was 4 years ago, and we've both grown up a lot since then.
Right.
So I'd really like to let her know that I'm more mature now. I'm not a 16, 17-year-old girl anymore. And that I think we can both just leave the past in the past without apologizing, without trying to hash anything out, just kind of putting up a white flag and being able to exist around each other comfortably.
So it sounds to me like you've got some thoughts in mind of how you would like to approach the situation. How soon do you think you could do that?
I'm not comfortable doing it tomorrow, since tomorrow's Friday, because I know she'd go home over the weekend and she'd have time to really think about everything and either build up more walls or think I want to be friends again.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if I did it Monday to where she'd know she'd have to see me the next day and the next day and the next day, she'd have less time to sit and think on it, and she'd be more forced to have to act.
Okay. So it sounds to me like what I'm hearing you say is that you're going to try to communicate with her a little more by the the early part of next week, and why don't you try that and see how that goes, and we'll talk a little more about that, and see, you can tell me about how that goes in your next session.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.